Savannah in May has a scent I'll never forget. A blend of sweet magnolia blossoms, peach cobbler from corner bakeries, and old bricks that soaked up a century of sun. It was the last week of school before summer break, and the River Street flea market buzzed with its usual chaos: gospel music from a Bluetooth speaker, church ladies selling boiled peanuts, and tourists fanning themselves under wide-brimmed hats. I was 17, lugging a canvas backpack and trying not to sweat through my cotton uniform. Cassidy Ray, my best friend since third grade, tugged at my arm and pointed toward a booth nestled between a used bookstall and someone hawking dream catchers. "There she is," she whispered. "Miss Moira Lou, the fortune teller." I rolled my eyes. "Cass, really? You believe in that stuff?" "She's not just anyone," Cassidy said, already dragging me forward. "She told Haley Thomas that her mama would remarry, and boom, 2 months later she's walking down the aisle with her old high school sweetheart." "That's called coincidence," I muttered, shifting my weight as the Georgia sun pinned us down like bugs under glass. But Cassidy wasn't listening. Miss Moira Lou sat in a foldable chair, wrapped in shawls the color of nightfall. Her skin was the deep brown of old leather, eyes dark and glassy like a doll's, framed beneath wiry silver curls that twisted under a wide-brimmed black hat. She wore bracelets that clinked when she moved, rings on every finger, some missing stones, some glowing with faded opal. Cassidy offered a crumpled $10 bill. "She wants a reading," she said, motioning to me. "I don't," I started, but Miss Moira Lou silenced me with a look. Her gaze landed on me like a weight, and for a second I forgot how to breathe. "You," she said, her voice low and cracked like dry bark. "Sit down, baby. You're the one I'm supposed to see." I hesitated, then sat across from her on a creaky stool. The air between us felt thicker than before, as if something unseen had settled on my shoulders. She reached across the table, palms up. "Left hand, child." Her fingers were warm, strong, and oddly electric. The moment she touched my palm, something sharp flickered behind her eyes. She studied my hand like it held a map only she could read. Her expression shifted from amused to alert, from curious to afraid. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Your lifeline breaks and then picks up again. You'll be tested, girl, more than once. But you're strong." I swallowed, suddenly uncomfortable. "Tested how?" She leaned closer. "When the time comes, don't get in the crimson car. I don't care who calls you. If you do, it'll be a long way back." My skin prickled. "What kind of car?" "Crimson," she repeated. "That deep bloody red. Not candy apple. Not cherry. Crimson like dried petals." Then she let go of my hand, and just like that, the air returned to normal. The weight lifted. Cassidy blinked. "Okay, that was creepy." We walked away quickly, the $10 bill still resting on the corner of her table. "You think she was serious?" Cassidy asked, trying to sound amused. "I mean, what does that even mean? Don't get in a red car." "I don't know," I said quietly. "But did you see her eyes when she said it?" That night, I mentioned it to my parents over dinner. Mama, ever the English teacher, laughed softly and quoted some poem about fate and choice. Daddy, a retired Army engineer, just nodded. "Stay away from strangers offering you rides," he said, dunking his cornbread into a bowl of collard greens. "No mystic necessary." They weren't worried, so I tried not to be either. But that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan whirling above me, her words echoed in my head again. "Don't get in the crimson car." 2 years passed. I was no longer the girl who believed in palm readings or held her breath when someone said the word destiny. College had a way of sanding the edges off your wonder. I was now a freshman at a small university just outside Savannah, living in a dorm with beige walls and plastic blinds that never quite closed all the way. I studied education, planning to teach literature like Mama, hoping I might one day walk into a classroom and change some kid's life the way a few teachers had changed mine. Cassidy and I ended up in the same program. By pure coincidence or fate, I no longer knew the difference. She'd wanted to study graphic design, but her parents talked her into something more reliable. So we were together again, like high school never ended. Same laugh, same wild ideas, same reckless energy that I admired and feared in equal measure. One Friday afternoon in June, Cassidy burst into our dorm room like a summer storm, cheeks flushed, eyes sparkling. She tossed her backpack onto the floor and waved 2 gold-trimmed invitations like victory flags. "You will never guess," she announced, out of breath, "what just fell into our laps." I raised an eyebrow, still cross-legged on my twin bed, highlighter in hand. Unless it's a miracle that lets me skip next week's psych exam, I'm not interested. "Better," she said, flopping down beside me. "It's the summer kickoff party at Eden Club with Elijah Devereaux." My stomach flipped. That name sounds expensive. "It is," she grinned. "His dad owns half the riverfront. Malls, hotels, condos with infinity pools. Elijah's like Savannah's Gatsby." I blinked. "And we're invited to this, why?" "Because I'm dating his best friend. You remember Wesley, guy from the computer lab with the floppy hair and lattes that smell like ambition? He and Elijah are tight, and he got us in. And no," she added before I could ask, "this is not some weird double date thing. There'll be a whole crowd. Music, cocktails, lights by the pool. Just say yes, Rachel." I hesitated. Something in my chest tightened, old and distant. "What?" she asked, watching me carefully. "Noting, elite. I promised Mama I'd visit home this weekend." Cassidy rolled her eyes. "You live 30 minutes away. Visit Sunday. Come on, girl, you need this. Finals fried your soul. You haven't worn mascara in a month." That made me laugh. "That's because I cry when I apply it." "Exactly," she said, squeezing my arm. "Tonight we sparkle." I called Mama an hour later, told her Cassidy had roped me into something, and I'd be back Sunday afternoon. Her silence on the other end wasn't angry, just heavy. "Where is this party?" she finally asked. "Some club out by the river," I said, avoiding the name on the invitation. "Cassidy says it's legit. She'll be with me the whole time." "I don't like it," Mama said quietly. "Strange people, alcohol, young men with too much money. It's a recipe." "I'm not drinking," I assured her. "And I'll text you when we get there and again when we leave." "Midnight," she said. "You'll be home before midnight." "Yes, ma'am." But even after I hung up, her voice lingered in my ear, and underneath it, like an echo, "Don't get in the crimson car." I didn't tell her about the prophecy. I hadn't spoken of it in 2 years, not even to Cassidy. It had faded into the dusty corner of memory where childhood fears live. But that night it stirred again, quiet and watchful, waiting. The Eden Club sat beyond the city limits, nestled along the bend of the Savannah River, hidden behind gates wrapped in flowering vines and the illusion of exclusivity. Cassidy insisted we take a rideshare instead of my rusted Corolla. "You can't roll up to a place like Eden in a car that sounds like it smokes cigarettes," she joked. The sun was just dipping when we pulled up. The building looked like something from an old movie. White columns, chandeliers hanging on the porch, music pulsing through the tall windows like the place had a heartbeat of its own. People were already milling around with glasses of champagne, all of them dressed in linen and effortless confidence. I tugged at my second-hand cocktail dress, deep green, a bit snug at the waist. I had worn it for my high school graduation. It felt out of place here. Cassidy, meanwhile, was glowing. Her red dress hugged every curve, and her curls bounced with every step as she waved to Wesley across the lawn. He jogged over, kissed her on the cheek, and turned to me with a polite smile. "You must be Rachel," he said. "Cassidy's told me you're the sensible one." "I try," I replied, forcing a grin. "Come on," he said, "Elijah's inside. He'll be glad you came." And just like that, We were swept inside the golden blur of music, laughter, and chandeliers the size of small cars. Someone handed me a glass of something pink and fizzy. I declined, asking for juice instead. I noticed the look, half amused, half surprised, but no one pressed. Cassidy disappeared into the crowd with Wesley, and I found myself by the terrace, nursing a glass of orange juice and wondering if Mama was still awake. That's when he appeared. Elijah Devereaux. He wasn't what I expected. No smug smirk. No cufflinks that screamed inheritance. Just a white shirt rolled up at the sleeves, dark hair a little messy, and a smile that walked the line between charm and mischief. "You must be Rachel," he said, handing me a fresh drink. "I've been hearing about you all night." "Hopefully good things," I said. He nodded. "Cassidy says you keep her from spontaneously combusting. That's noble." I laughed despite myself. We talked about college, books, how Savannah smelled better after rain. He had opinions about Flannery O'Connor and could name every Civil War general buried downtown. He was smarter than he looked. Or maybe I just wanted him to be. Time passed too quickly. At one point, I glanced at my phone. 11:47 p.m. "I should go," I said, standing abruptly. "I promised my mom." "I'll drive you," Elijah offered. Cassidy reappeared behind him, her lipstick slightly smudged. "That's perfect," she said. "Wesley's staying, and I didn't bring my phone charger." I hesitated. "Maybe we should get a ride." "Don't be silly," Elijah cut in. "I haven't had that much to drink. Besides, I want to show you something." "What?" He smiled like it was a secret. "My new baby. A gift from my dad for finishing the semester with straight A's. Come on, she's in the back lot." I followed them reluctantly, the gravel crunching under my flats. The lot behind the club was darker, quieter. Fireflies floated above the ground like spirits. Elijah pressed a button on his key fob. Headlights flashed. The car was beautiful. A deep red BMW. New, sleek, gleaming under the security light. But the color wasn't candy red or glossy sports car red. It was something else, richer, darker. Crimson. My blood turned to ice. It was the kind of color you only saw on antique velvet or dried rose petals. My legs refused to move, but Cassidy was already sliding into the back seat, waving at me to hurry. I blinked. My ears buzzed. Somewhere inside me, a girl I used to be was screaming, "Don't get in the crimson car, Rachel." Elijah called, "You okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just a little tired." "You can rest on the way," he said, opening the passenger door with a flourish. I got in. I don't know why. Maybe because Cassidy had. Maybe because it was just easier than arguing. Maybe because I didn't want to seem crazy. But as the door clicked shut beside me and the engine purred to life, something inside me splintered. Grant Holloway, one of Elijah's quieter friends, climbed into the back seat beside Cassidy. "Mind if I tag along?" he asked. Elijah laughed. "Sure, man. The more the merrier." We pulled out of the parking lot, the trees swallowing us whole as we merged onto the empty highway. That's when I remembered the rest of the prophecy. If you do, it'll be a long way back. And still, I said nothing. The road stretched ahead like a ribbon of ink, swallowed by pine trees on either side. The windows were down, and the scent of river water and summer dust filled the car. Somewhere in the back seat, Cassidy was humming along to the music drifting from the radio. I kept my eyes on the shadows outside, trying not to look at the speedometer or Elijah's hands on the wheel. He was driving fast. Too fast. "Elijah," I started. "We're fine," he said, laughing like I'd just asked him to slow down on a roller coaster. "There's no one else out here. The road's ours." The wind picked up, lifting strands of my hair into my eyes. My stomach clenched. My fingers gripped the edge of the seat. Grant leaned forward. "Maybe ease up a little, man." Elijah grinned into the rearview mirror. "You nervous too?" "I just don't feel like peeling Rachel off the windshield tonight." I appreciated the attempt, but Elijah just waved it off. This car handles like a dream. I could drive her with my eyes closed. The engine purred louder as he pressed the gas. The speedometer ticked past 70, then 80, then higher. The trees became a blur of black and green. I turned to look at Cassidy. She had her head resting against the window, eyes closed, smiling like it was all some romantic joyride. I opened my mouth again to speak, and that's when I saw the turn, a sharp bend in the road, a reflective post flickering like a warning. Elijah tapped the brakes, but too late. The tires shrieked as they met the curve. The world tilted. The car jolted hard to the left. The wheels lost grip. I heard Grant shout, heard Cassidy scream. Elijah cursed, trying to correct the wheel, but the road was slick with dew and fallen pine needles. And then the headlights caught a flash of metal. A truck, big, fast, coming right at us. I saw the driver's eyes, wide, panicked, just before the truck swerved, missing us by inches. The impact never came, but the momentum did. The BMW spun, rubber burned. Then the world went weightless. We were off the road, skimming air. Time stretched like molasses. I saw Cassidy's hand reaching out, fingers slow as smoke. Grant's body lunging forward, mouth open in a scream I couldn't hear. Elijah yanking at the wheel like it could change anything. And then I was flying. The windshield shattered like ice. Glass sprayed across my skin. I was weightless, boneless, air and blood and fear. The last thing I saw was the glow of taillights as the crimson car twisted in the dark, spinning, flipping, gone. Silence is different after a crash. It's not still. It's full of echoes, groans from bending metal, the ticking of something hot cooling off, the sound of blood moving through your ears, even when the rest of you can't. Then came the pain, all at once, bright, biting, unbearable. I tried to move. My arms screamed. My back was on fire. I opened my mouth, and no sound came out. There were voices, far away, Cassidy calling my name, Elijah swearing, Grant trying to keep someone calm. Then everything disappeared. Light returned in pieces. First was the ceiling, pale, cracked, unfamiliar. Then the beeping, soft and rhythmic, somewhere near my head. A curtain rustled. The sharp scent of antiseptic filled my lungs. I blinked, tried to sit up and couldn't. "Rachel," someone whispered. "Mama." Her hand touched my cheek, soft and trembling. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight, eyes swollen with sleepless nights. "You're okay," she murmured. "You're safe now, baby. You're here." A doctor appeared beside her, middle-aged, clean-shaven, kind eyes behind rectangular glasses. "Miss Morgan," he said gently, "I'm Dr. Malcolm Hayes. You've been through quite a lot." My mouth was dry as chalk. What happened? I managed to rasp. "You were in a car accident," he said. "Severe trauma. You've been unconscious for nearly 2 days. We stabilized you, performed surgery on your spine and clavicle. The good news is you're alive, and your brain function is intact." I stared at him. "And the bad?" He hesitated, then stepped closer. "There's been damage to your spinal cord. You're experiencing paralysis from the waist down. We'll need time to assess the long-term prognosis. But for now, you won't be able to feel or move your legs." I didn't respond. I couldn't. The words dropped into my chest like stones into deep water. I waited for the splash, the ripple, but all I felt was stillness. No legs, no movement, no way back. I closed my eyes and saw her. "Miss Moira Lou, if you do, it'll be a long way back." She had been right, and I hadn't listened. The first time I tried to move, it felt like my body wasn't mine. My fingers twitched. My arms obeyed, stiff and sore but present. But from the waist down, nothing. Just a heavy silence, like the lower half of me had been erased. Dr. Hayes came in every morning. He adjusted machines, checked vitals, asked how I was sleeping. He never once used the word never. He said things like recovery takes time, and we won't know the full picture for a while. But I saw it in his eyes. That quiet pause before he answered. That soft look when he thought I wasn't watching. Mama didn't leave my side. She read to me when I couldn't sleep, brushed my hair when I was too weak to lift a comb. Daddy sat in the corner, silent, hands folded, eyes burning behind old military calm. I hated that room, hated the beeping, hated the way nurses spoke to me like I might break. But most of all, I hated the moment every morning when I opened my eyes, hoped it had all been a dream, and realized it hadn't. On day 4, Cassidy showed up. She stood awkwardly in the doorway, holding a bouquet of sunflowers in a paper-wrapped cone. Her face was puffy, makeup faded. "Hey," she said. I didn't answer. She stepped inside slowly. I wanted to come earlier, but I didn't know what to say. "You could have said you were sorry," I whispered. "I am," she said quickly, eyes welling up. "God, Rachel, I am so sorry. If I hadn't pushed me, talked me into going, ignored the fact that he was drunk?" "Yeah." She flinched. I didn't know he was going to drive like that. I looked away. Outside the window, a storm was rolling in, gray clouds stacking high like bruises. "He almost died too," she added. "He has a concussion. Broken ribs. Grant's arm is in a cast. Wesley got off with bruises, but we were lucky. So lucky." I let the silence speak for me. Cassidy stepped closer. "I brought your journal." She held out the little leather-bound notebook I kept on my nightstand. "You always said writing helps when everything feels too much." I took it, not because I wanted to, but because it felt like the only part of my old life that wasn't soaked in guilt. "I'll go," she said. "I just wanted to see you. And say I love you." She turned toward the door. "Cass," I called, voice dry and cracking. "You didn't make him drink, but you laughed when he said he'd drive. You didn't stop him." "I didn't stop him. None of us did." She nodded. "I know." Then she left. The next few weeks passed in fragments. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, questions I didn't want to answer, exercises I didn't want to try. Sometimes I made progress. Sometimes I cried just from sitting upright for 10 minutes. One day, Dr. Hayes wheeled in a new machine, a lift system to help me transfer to a chair. "This next phase will be hard," he said, "but I think you're ready." "Ready to what?" I snapped. "Be a burden? Learn how to exist in half a body." He didn't flinch. "Ready to live. You're allowed to grieve what you lost. But don't forget you're still here." I stared at him. "I don't know how to be this version of me." "You'll learn," he said. "The world doesn't get to decide your value. You do." That night, I opened my journal. I didn't write about the pain or the silence or the pity in people's eyes. I wrote about the color of the sky outside my window, the way my mother's voice trembled when she read poetry aloud, the scent of hand lotion and lemon soap. Small things, but they were mine. A week later, I moved back home, but not to our old apartment. Daddy had made a decision while I was in the hospital. He sold our condo and used the money to renovate Grandma's old house on Magnolia Street. "No stairs," he said. "We widened the doors, built a ramp. The garden's still a mess, but we'll fix it." I cried when I saw it, not out of sadness, but something deeper, a grief tangled with gratitude. They were giving me a new life. Not perfect, not what I'd imagined, but real, tangible. And I was beginning to believe maybe that was enough. It rained the day we moved in. Not a thunderstorm, just a slow, southern rain, the kind that made everything smell like wet pine and iron. The movers were soaked by the time they rolled my chair up the new ramp, but Mama insisted on offering them sweet tea anyway. "No one works this hard in Savannah without something cold," she said, shooing Daddy toward the fridge. I hadn't seen the house in years. Grandma's old place had always felt too still, too creaky. But now, with its fresh white trim and jasmine vines curling up the porch railings, it looked like something out of a storybook. The The windows had been lowered. The doors widened. A ramp curved around the front steps like it had always belonged. And inside, the house smelled like lemon polish and new beginnings. My room was at the back, where the sun touched the walls just right in the morning. Mama had brought in soft blankets, pale yellow curtains, and a new desk by the window for journaling. "I figured you'd need a little quiet space to write," she said softly, brushing invisible dust from the bookshelf. "And a view." Outside that window stood the same magnolia tree I used to climb as a girl. It was taller now, thicker around the base, leaves dark and glossy with raindrops. But it was still there, like me, scarred but standing. The hardest part wasn't the pain. It wasn't the chair or the stairs at the grocery store or the way people talked slower to me, like I couldn't keep up. The hardest part was forgiving myself. I replayed that night more times than I could count. The laughter in the car, the hum of the radio, the moment I didn't speak up, or maybe the moment I did, and it wasn't enough. I wanted someone to blame, and for a while that someone was me. But healing is strange. It sneaks up on you, not in grand gestures, but in the way you start noticing the sound of wind through the porch screens, or the way sunflowers tilt their heads toward light no matter how many storms pass through. I started physical therapy again, this time at St. Juniper's Spine and Recovery Clinic, a 30-minute drive into town. The first time I wheeled through the automatic doors, I saw a man with no arms painting with his teeth. I saw a girl with a spinal brace teaching herself how to dance with one leg. I saw life, messy and miraculous and raw. And for the first time since the accident, I felt less alone. Weeks later, Cassidy visited. She parked beneath the magnolia tree, stepping out with a box in her arms. Her face was thinner, her eyes ringed with guilt. "Still can't believe your daddy fixed up this whole place," she said, settling the box on my lap. "It looks like a bed and breakfast from a Hallmark movie." I smiled faintly, just missing the handsome stranger who owns a bakery next door. She chuckled, then bit her lip. I brought pictures, from before and from that night. I thought, maybe if you wanted to talk. I looked at her, really looked at her. The girl who had been with me through first kisses, homecoming heartbreaks, failed math tests, midnight swims, and one terrible, irreversible night. "I don't want to talk about the accident," I said quietly. "Not yet." She nodded. "Okay. But I do forgive you." Her breath caught. "Even if I don't forgive myself." "Especially then." She cried right there on the porch. And this time, I held her. Every night before bed, I rolled myself to the window. I watched the magnolia leaves flutter, felt the wind through the open glass. I thought of all the versions of me that had stood under that tree. Child, teenager, reckless girl in love, broken woman in a hospital bed. And I whispered to the night, "I'm still here." That was enough. For now. It started with the knock. Not the soft kind from neighbors bringing banana bread or church ladies dropping off casseroles. This one was firm, deliberate. I was in the kitchen, rolling backward from the fridge with a pitcher of water balanced on my lap when I heard it. Mama peeked out the window. It's a young man, about your age, holding a camera. She opened the door. "Hi, ma'am. I'm Grant Holloway. I was a passenger in the car that night." My throat closed. I hadn't seen him since the crash. Last I remembered, he was sitting behind me, arguing with Wesley over a playlist. Now, he looked different, older, not in years, but in weight. Like guilt had aged him faster than time. "Can I come in for a moment?" he asked gently. Mama looked at me. I nodded once. He sat stiffly on the edge of the sofa, camera case still slung across his shoulder. "I've been filming a documentary," he said, voice low, "about spinal injury survivors. What they go through, the silent part of it. I wanted to ask if you'd consider being part of it." I raised an eyebrow. "You're kidding." "No, I know how it sounds. But after what happened, I couldn't just go back to normal. I needed to face it. So I started telling people stories. Real people. Not actors. Not pity. Just truth. I didn't say anything. He reached into his bag and pulled out a letter. The envelope was creased, worn like it had been carried around too long. This was meant for you. I wrote it 2 weeks after the accident, but I couldn't send it. I hesitated, then took it. He stood up. I'll leave you with it. No pressure about the documentary. Just thank you for listening. I waited until the house was quiet. Then I opened the letter. Rachel, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe I'll have the courage to send it. Maybe not. But I need to try. That night changed all of us. I remember everything. The music, the way you laughed when Cassidy sang off-key, the moment Wesley grabbed the wheel. I remember yelling at him to stop. I remember the silence before the crash. And I remember crawling out and not seeing you move. I was the only one who didn't black out. I saw you. I saw the way your legs didn't move. I wanted to help, but I froze. I hate myself for that. I've watched the footage 1,000 times. From my camera. From the dash. I've analyzed every second, trying to figure out if I could have done more. The truth is, I could have. I've decided to tell stories now. Not for forgiveness. Just for understanding. If you ever want to talk or yell or cry, I'm here. Grant. The next morning, I called him. You can interview me, I said. His breath caught. Are you sure? No. But let's do it anyway. He arrived 2 hours later. No big crew. Just him, a tripod, and a microphone. We filmed on the porch. I told him about the hospital, about the silence in my legs, about the days when getting dressed felt like climbing a mountain. I told him about the anger, the shame, the slow stitching together of something that resembled hope. But I also told him about the tree outside my window, about the way Cassidy cried in my arms, about how Mama still made sweet tea like it was a religion. He didn't interrupt once. When we were done, he said, "You're not just a survivor. You're a storyteller." I smiled. No, I'm just finally learning how to tell the truth. That night, I left the letter on my nightstand, not because I needed to reread it, but because for the first time, I didn't feel alone in the memory. The wedding was small. Nothing like the grand riverfront affairs you'd see in Savannah society columns. Just 20 guests, a few rows of folding chairs under the magnolia tree in our front yard, and a violinist from the local college who played with more heart than precision. I wore a pale blue dress Mama helped tailor to fit my chair, and in place of a veil, I wore the silver comb Grandma left me, the one with the mother-of-pearl lilies carved along its edge. The groom stood barefoot in the grass. Yes, barefoot. Grant Holloway had shown up in my life like a ghost, unresolved, guilt-ridden, carrying a camera and an apology. I didn't expect to let him in. I didn't expect his presence to feel like breath after drowning. But somehow, through all the late-night editing sessions, the quiet porch conversations, and the hours we spent turning pain into testimony, something shifted. Not suddenly, not romantically, just honestly. The first time he kissed me, it wasn't fireworks. It was a whisper, like the universe saying, "You can start again." Cassidy was my maid of honor. She cried more than I did, which was saying something. Mama baked the cake herself, a lemon almond layer with white frosting and flowers she picked from the yard. Daddy built a little arch from cedar branches and draped it in gauze and twinkle lights. I remember wheeling myself down the makeshift aisle and seeing every face I loved smiling back at me. Not with pity, not with sadness, with joy, pure, radiant joy. After the vows, after the kiss, after the laughter and dancing and barefoot, slow steps in the moonlight, I found a moment alone by the porch swing. The air was thick with jasmine. The moonlight caught on the old wind chimes, making them shimmer like they'd been waiting for this moment too. I thought of all the versions of myself I had been. The girl who thought love meant losing yourself. The woman who believed broken meant unlovable. The survivor who mistook silence for strength. And now this, a wife, a storyteller, a woman not defined by what she'd lost, but by what she had dared to rebuild. A week later, Grant and I aired the documentary. It wasn't flashy, just raw footage and soft narration. But it spread faster than we imagined. Shared by nurses, trauma survivors, teachers, mothers, people in wheelchairs who finally saw their truth reflected somewhere besides hospital brochures. We called it Still Here, because that's what we were. Still here, still loving, still healing, still choosing joy even when grief whispered its old songs. One night, months later, I sat by my window while Grant slept, our cat curled up between my feet. A breeze rustled through the magnolia leaves. Somewhere far off, a train passed, low and steady. I reached for the journal on my windowsill and wrote. Today, I laughed without wincing. Today, I stood in my kitchen, hands on the counter, legs braced in my new therapy frame, and made biscuits from scratch. Today, I remembered the crash, and it didn't steal my breath. Today, I let myself be loved. Fully, without fear, without apology. I closed the journal and smiled. The past hadn't vanished. It never would, but it didn't own me anymore. People ask me if I believe in miracles. I don't know how to answer that, but I believe in stubborn grace. I believe in second chances that don't announce themselves. Only knock softly when you're finally ready. I believe in quiet forgiveness, porch swings, camera lenses that capture truth instead of perfection. And I believe in the girl I used to be, the one who lay in a hospital bed, thinking her life was over. She was wrong. It was just beginning.